Hello everyone, Brian Gockel here, Weather Service Office of Observations. Welcome to the Satellite Book Club Seminar Series. This is session number 255. Today's presentation is the TOWR-S Portal, Intro to VuSkew, and the Mission Dashboard. Our presenter today is Dr. Chad Gravel, and our facilitator is Dr. Dan Lindsay. This session is being recorded as usual. Please see the pinned message in the chat. We'll take Q&A at the end of the presentation. In presenting, please fill out the form in the chat and we'll take your feedback and get back to you. Also, feedback on today's seminar or any seminar can be left in the feedback form, and the TOWR-S team will be posting that link in the chat. There it is as well. Training assistance is available, whether it's for preparing a Satellite Book Club call or just if you're looking for satellite training in general. Please contact Ross Van Til of the Plant Training Group. Thanks as always to the OCLO, GEO, and LEO programs for their support of the TOWR-S team, the making and putting on these seminars, and many other satellite preparation activities. Now let's introduce today's presenter, Dr. Chad Gravel. Chad is the National Science and Operations Officer for the National Weather Service. He provides national leadership for the SEW program, advancing research to operations activities that strengthen the connection between innovative science and forecast operations across NWS forecast offices and national centers. Dr. Gravel leads or has led several science-driven initiatives shaping the future of NWS services, including the Community-Centric Warnings Initiative, the Dynamic Ensemble-Based Scenarios for IDSS project, and the Warn on Forecast Systems transition to National Weather Service operations, that in addition to the SEW transformation demonstration. Previously, Chad served as the GOES-R satellite liaison and the chief scientist for the Weather Service Ops Proving Ground. That was from 2011 to 2019. There, he led evaluations of emerging satellite-based and probabilistic forecast tools to accelerate their operational adoption. Chad earned his PhD and Master of Science in Meteorology from St. Louis University, where he developed the SIPS analog guidance and received the NWA's T. Theodore Fujita Research Achievement Award for his contributions to weather forecasting. We're so glad to have Chad with us today, and without further ado, we'll hand the mic over to Chad so he can begin today's session. Chad?
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate it. Boy, I don't like listening to all that stuff. But thanks for reading it, Brian. For those of you who just don't know what I've been doing the last 15 years or so of my life. But enough about me. This is about, I think this is going to be a really interesting 30 minutes of seeing how TOWR-S is trying to evolve the services they provide, in particular forecast offices, with respect to supporting them on satellite products and other observations as well, as you'll find out. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. So here's our outline. So they have this new resource, we'll call it. It's called the TOWR-S Portal, and included in there some things that we're going to look at, some of them in a little more detail, but there's a lot there. And at the end of the 30 minutes or so, we're going to provide a link so you all can go start looking and seeing what else needs to be there, provide feedback, etc. So you can just end up going and playing with it as well. So we're going to talk about the mission dashboard that you'll see in VuSkew that kind of Brian talked about, and Dan Lindsay will help me walk through that a little, and then some additional features that I think, some of you will find interesting. Next slide, Luke. Okay, so what is the TOWR-S Portal? It's accessible to anyone with no email, and you'll find that out at the end. It really centralizes the way that TOWR-S you know, and Tower tools support you all. So like the meso mission viewer. So seeing where like the mesoscale sectors are. The Tower Pro RPM is included so that when there's an update, like there was a big update a couple weeks ago, all that information will be in the portal. You can go look at any satellite book club archive, and there's some very interesting search features associated with that, and the polar planner as well. And it really it continues NESDIS and TOWR-S commitment to really help forecast offices and the Weather Service community be supported with satellite data, etc. So I think, Luke, without further ado, we're going to go right to the portal. And I have a bunch of notes on my slide over here, so I'll be looking back and forth. But this is kind of what it looks like. And I'm not the expert here, really. I just want you all to know that. I played with it a little. I hope you all will go play with it. But the first thing you'll get to is called this mission dashboard. And the mission dashboard is interesting. Well, the first thing it shows you the mesosectors, right? You can see them playing in simple. But it also has a lot of, you know, forecast products out there as well. It's kind of set up so you can see CWA boundaries. In addition to some of those, you know, the current WAWA map alerts. There's NGFS fires that are included. There's also like on the overlay, the default overlays, there's also prob severe polygons as a proxy for severe weather, and I don't think there's much going on. There might be some along the Gulf Coast. And coming soon, there's going to be swath times for polar, you know, polar passes as well included on it. One of the interesting things, and Dan, I hope you'll help me with this, but we'll have Luke kind of like point this out, is that we can get to I'm trying to think about what it's called here, VuSkew. Very simple, okay? So VuSkew is a way to compare satellite sounding retrievals to existing other sounding observations that we get all in one place. You know, before Dan pops on, Luke, why don't you zoom in and go somewhere so that we can kind of like see what this looks like. So it looks like we're going to Central Illinois. And Dan, I don't know if you want to like kind of like take over if you want, but you can see those. I think those green dots are satellite retrievals, correct?
Yeah, so given the high spatial resolution of GOES ABI, you have a lot of them in any given clear sky scene. The gaps are due to the areas where there's clouds. But I think what's the really cool part about this is the ability to compare not just GOES, but all of the different sounding options there that are you can see in the menu in the top left. And this includes ACARS, which up to now, I don't think is super easy for you guys to look at in your AWIPs or even possible. So, and I also see Windborne there, which I don't know much about, but I think it's new and perhaps pretty useful.
Yeah, and there's resources, like we'll get to those, like there's resources about a lot of this stuff on the main portal page, and we'll go back to that. But one of the really interesting things to me, this is a really great teaching tool for, I think, for weather service forecasters, because they have a lot of these retrievals. You know, you can see all the green dots in the clear sky, but it's really like it's a different way to look at that sounding information and that profile information, and being able to like do a very good proxy of like existing, either if it's an ACARS or if it's a RAYOB, etc. It really helps put in perspective what it's showing, like what these satellite retrievals are showing. And it's not meant to be, in my opinion, like, well, I'm comparing and contrasting. But if you put like, Luke, if you put like another like observation over that, you can really see where the detail is, where it's excelling potentially, and where you need to be a little more cautious. And you can see here, temperature wise, it's pretty good. Like, and I think over time, and kind of like playing this with this viewer, will allow Weather Service meteorologists to get really comfortable with with these satellite retrievals. And Dan, I don't know if you want to talk about the future, but like there's big plans, you know, for this, and like these satellite retrievals. And I think it's, you can clearly see, you know, the usefulness, at least I hope you can all see the usefulness of being able to do this and get comfortable with that information. Dan, I'll throw it back to you for a second.
Yeah, that's right, Chad. So some of you may not be familiar with satellite soundings in general, and what these are, you have to understand, this is not a direct measurement like radiosondes. You're not putting a thermometer and a a humidity measuring instrument into the atmosphere. What you're doing is collecting radiances from the satellite and then inverting the information to make an estimate of the temperature and water vapor profiles. And the green soundings on here, these are the GOES soundings. These come from the ABI, which is not a sounder. The ABI, of course, is an imager, so it's not necessarily designed to do sounding. And for that reason, it's pretty smooth in the vertical. And you can see that in Luke is sort of panning around. You can see that it's not going to capture sort of the magnitude of the temperature inversion or the vertical gradients associated with dry slots and things like that. So you have to keep that in mind when you're looking at these. It's not the exact same, and there are going to be occasionally some errors. You could even see the surface dew point in some of those soundings is, you know, a little bit drier or moisture than some of the other options that are around. So you do have to keep in mind the limitations. But Chad mentioned the future, and that's kind of what we're heading to. And you may have heard us talk about the GeoXO program. That's the follow-on. We're going to have to wait a bit longer. We're talking in the early 2030s launching. But on some of those satellites, we're going to have a sounder in the geo orbit. We currently in the GOES-R series, we don't have a sounder. We only have an imager and a lightning mapper. And so what that'll do is it'll allow us to get these soundings every hour, but with much higher accuracy than the GOES is providing, and also higher vertical resolution. Hyperspectral data means you're collecting data at a bunch of different spectral bands, and that allows you to get more detail in the vertical and also more accuracy. And so what you could do is use the sounder you could directly compare like we're doing here, or you could do CAPE retrievals or calculate CAPE based on the retrievals and make a plan view, and then you could track the CAPE with time, for example. So you could see instability moving into an area where storms are or may form. So yeah, this is something that's going to really be expanding in the future, but in the meantime, you can get sort of the more smooth, less accurate GOES to compare with all the other things like ACARS, Windborne, and even the model soundings. And actually, I don't think, have we talked about the model soundings yet, Chad?
I don't think we did, actually. I think Luke threw, I think maybe he threw the wrap on right now. Yeah, but we didn't talk about them, but they're listed there as well on the left.
Yeah, I know that, of course, I'm not a forecaster, but in occasionally looking over the shoulder of forecasters, folks like to take a look at the model soundings sometimes. And you can see there you've got the GFS, the NAM, and the RAP available. And of course, my brain immediately went to what about the HER? And my understanding is they're looking into adding the HER. You know, that's going to be more challenging simply due to the large data set that the HER comes in. But I think it's kind of cool to be able to compare RAP with all the other sources, just to see, you know, if the model is out to lunch or if it's sort of on track of what's happening.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Dan. Luke, why don't we jump out of VuSkew and go back to like the main portal? And like that's one of the big things behind the mission dashboard. I think it just allows you to, you know, not only kind of get a good overview, it's really fast about where the mesosectors are, but it allows you to kind of dig deeper into, and it's a direct link into VuSkew, kind of like what we just showed you. I do want to go and talk about some of the other resources at the top. So the first one is Luke, is the reference materials. Let's go there first. And I think this is just an early an early taste of what this can be. But it provides like background information on some of the more highly used satellite products, which is great. It also provides you AWIPS bundles that can be clearly or very quickly downloaded and added to your forecast offices. And it goes into details on what these all are, which I think is like, it's another really, really great reference. And it's reference materials. I almost call it like a library, right? You can go through and like if there's something, and there's some winter weather ones, there's some severe weather ones, and I think there's fire weather there. And it just gives you a good first initial guess, and you can obviously modify those and save those, into your own procedures in AWIPS. It's just another great reference, area that can potentially be used by all you. And I think it's a good addition, to the portal here. Luke, I think let's go to the next one. So the cloud machine requests. And we're not going to do like a demo here per se. And if anyone else on the TOWR-S team needs to add some value to what I'm going to say here, please, by all means, please do that. But anybody in the Weather Service has the ability with this to go and start basically a cloud machine request and look at real-time data on the cloud. I think it's a really good. I think there's an archive there, and maybe Lee or Joe might want to like clarify on that. But you can go and you can take a look at archive data in the AWIPS cloud environment, and being able to go and look at the data just how you would look at it. I think it's a very I don't think most people know about this, but it's there, and you can you can submit a request. Another interesting thing that you can do is you can get a satellite expert to like go on there with you and like talk to you about and use it as a teaching tool, and say how would I use this, these resources potentially. I think it'll be a great way to go back and look at case studies really quick. Yeah, Joe or Lee, is there anything else? Anything else you want to add to that before we move on? Let me see. Joe might have like corrected me, which is good. Not for conducting mission op, right? It's like they're like a teaching tool. They're a retrospective, right? If the the data's been purged on your AWIPS, but you want to go back and look at it and see what it is. And I don't think it's everything, but I think there's a lot there that you could just do a quick case study on potentially, and I think that's powerful. Luke, why don't we go? Why don't we move ahead and go to? So this is the Tower Pro tab, I think, and this is where all the updates are. So, like for example, the latest update, version 26, was sent out a couple of weeks ago. And you can see all the forecast offices that are there that have installed that already. Thank you, Central Region, for doing that and making most of your area green. That's good, because there's so much. And that's another thing. You can see these banners down there. Like when you get to the portal, go click on that 26. There are quite a few upgrades. And like last week's or like 2 weeks ago, I think the Satellite Book Club went through a lot of those features that were coming out in version 26. And there's quite a few new RGBs on there. There's color deficiency RGBs that we've gotten research on. There's just, this is an upgrade that you need your ITOs to do for, I would have them do that. And we'll get everyone there eventually, but there's just quite a bit at your fingertips. And this is one way for them to have this, this place where they can quickly go and grab those updates, which I think is great as well. Luke, let's go to the Satellite Book Club. So this is interesting. I think this is interesting too. So all of the Satellite Book Club presentations, it looks like all 252 of them are listed there. And one of the really cool things about them is you can search them all. And I don't know, in Lee and Joe and Luke, etc., I don't know if you're all using AI to do this. I feel like there is some like AI component, but you can like literally, and Luke, I'm sure you have a word throw in there.
Right now it is a keyword-based search, but we are working on implementing a AI chat model.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It was something is going to come, but just throw in a word so you can, like, people can think of those words. Like, how about hotspot? Or hotspot. There's tornado, and you can see there's 75 results. And if you click on one, it will actually go to the exact minute of when I think the first time of where that word was like used, because they're all closed captioned for the most part. It's a really, really interesting way to like quickly search for these, and it's just a really, really, it's really great resource if you're trying to like understand or find something really quickly. It works really super well. Okay, so these are like, thank you, Luke, you're thinking, you're in my head. So you can kind of like go through and like, these are all the people that have ever been a part of a Satellite Book Club presentation before. And you can see a lot of people, and there's a lot of other service people on here, probably about they usually, TOWR-S team does a really good job of mixing satellite experts and operational meteorologists and hydrologists in here, but you can see a lot of names that I know that you'll all recognize, that are a lot of your colleagues in the field. It's kind of small on my screen. I don't know how many I've done. I think is that an 8 or 6? Okay, good. And you can see all the ones that I was a part of, either as a facilitator like Dan's doing today, or as the lead presenter. But it's just a really great, like Katie McGee's on there. I see her name right there. There's a lot of people that have contributed over the years, which is really, really great. And then the last thing on the portal, and I know that we're getting close to the bottom of the hour, is the TOWR apps. And I don't like, that's kind of like, you can get the VuSkew this way. There's some other things you can get to. The mission, do the MMV there. So that directly takes you to the meso requests that I know that a lot of you don't have access to, and but this is where you can quickly see where the mesos are planned for, and where they'll be. This kind of links that other website right up to here, so everything's in one spot. There's another one I wanted you to go to, the Polar Planner maybe. And Dan, why don't you talk about, I think you do have a little more information on the Polar planner. I don't have a lot of knowledge in it.
Yeah,
Hopefully
this is designed for weather service forecasters who are interested in looking at data from any of our polar satellites or some of our partners' polar satellites. In fact, so MEDOP is one of the European, and you can see it plots on there the timing and location of both, I think, past and upcoming passes. I think this is used a lot by NHC when they're looking at, for example, microwave imagery of hurricanes. They really rely on those polar passes, but it can be used by anybody. If you guys are looking for NewCats data from our NOAA 20 and 21, or all sorts of different things, you can look and see when the pass is coming, or even when the past passes have occurred.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. And we can go back to the portal if you want, Luke. I know there's a lot here, and like literally we can we could spend a lot of time on this, but the idea is just to give you a taste. The idea was like we'll switch over and go back to the presentation so that you all can get the link, and somebody will throw the link in the chat, and it's about playing and providing feedback now. And I think there's some questions coming in. I don't know do we have any more slides at the end? We kind of went through this. We kind of went through this, Luke. Yeah, and there's the link, geotower.nws.noaa.gov. It's pretty easy to remember. Go bookmark it, and I'll throw it back to Dan, and I think there's some questions that were coming in.
All right, thanks a lot, Chad. That was a great presentation. And before we turn to the audience for questions, just a couple of quick reminders. To view the facilitator and presenters during this Q&A session, it helps to change your layout from tiled to hide tiles without video. The next Satellite Book Club will take place at the same time next week. The topic will be announced soon. If you have questions about Satellite Book Club or satellite products, contact Sheila Kupai from the TOWR-S team. And so now we are going to turn to the audience questions. And before going to the audience question, I'm going to kick it off with one. And if I could ask Luke to go back to VuSkew really quick, because this is easier to point to.
Yeah.
If you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, we'll do our best to answer the questions within the portal too. I'm going to throw up the chat for myself too. Yep, go ahead.
Yep. Yeah. Now, if you go to like one of the RAOB sites, like I don't know, actually put radiosondes on there. The yellow. There we go. Yeah. I noticed earlier when you had one up, it looked like it was actually tracking the balloon itself. It had sort of a linear, or maybe that was the ACARS that showed that.
Isn't that the windborne data?
Or was it?
No, I don't have a lot. I don't know much about it. I think there's some reference material, and someone from TOWR-S, please correct me. But I think that was the windborne data. Isn't that right?
So the windborne data and the ACARS data, we have the balloon or airplane tracks for, and so we're able to show that on the map there. And when you hover, you can see it highlights the lat long that particular level is at.
That really is cool, because I mean we all know that airplanes don't take off directly vertically, and so and even weather balloons obviously drift as well. But I think that's really neat to be able to track it, because you may move across the front or something, and you need to know that if your sounding is like the bottom part is on one side of the front and the upper part is on the other side of the front. Okay, that was all on that. Thanks. So I'm going to go now to the questions in the chat. And then I can, if we need to, I can toss a couple more out there. Let's see, there's been a lot. Let me scroll up and see. It looks like there were some questions about the cloud AWIPs that Joe answered. I think those are good. Let me see. So Aaron is asking, who do we talk to improve the VuSkew for Oconus? They're not seeing any ACARS data for Alaska or other model sounding data there. Is there a way to zoom in and out on the WFO scale? I think the answer is yes on that, because that's what Luke was just doing. Right now, you can only zoom in, and you may not be able to cover our entire CWA. So let me let somebody from the TOWR-S team, maybe, or Chad, if you know, answer Aaron's questions.
So there is a limit for how far you can zoom out, mainly imposed for performance reasons, because if you zoom out too far, it'll end up querying a lot of data and it'll just slow you down. But we can work on increasing that maximum so that you are able to actually see your entire WFM.
All right, thanks, Luke. Let's see, Marcia is asking if we can explain the features on the center line of the dashboard. So maybe if you wouldn't mind going back to that so we can see.
On the center line.
Maybe it was the line at the top that we just saw or I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I guess, Marcia, if you can clarify what center line you're referring to in the chat, and the black and orange lines. Oh, so the lines there at the bottom.
Oh, yeah. Good. Yeah. Luke or somebody will probably need to chime in on this one.
I can take that.
I think one of them is Bob Severe, right? Or something. I can't remember though.
Yes, this black line is the prob severe. That's how many different polygons of that there are for prob severe at that time. So you can see there's
in the view that you're looking at. That's important, isn't that correct?
It is across all the data that we have.
All the data. Okay,
Yeah.
good. So it doesn't matter if you're zoomed in or not.
And you can't really see it right now, but if we have prob severe where the probability gets pretty high, you will see the color change on this line where lighter colors are more severe. And then the orange line is the same kind of like density of NGFS fire detections for that given time. So if we go further back, we can see more of these dots show up for the NGFS fires.
And you can turn those lines on and off, and I think, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. I remember that one.
So if you don't care about fires, you can turn them off if you want.
All right, thanks for that. Let's go. Here's a question from Scott. He says, Scott Stern says, VuSkew is an excellent tool, especially for offsite use. In addition to the permanent routine upper air sites, are rayobs from mobile or non-routine stations, such as IMET fire soundings, visible within the viewer? And if not, what do we need to do to make that happen? That's probably another question for you, Luke, or somebody on TOWR-S.
Hey Dan, this is Lee. I would be happy to look into that. So we will follow up with Scott and see what we can do to help there.
Cool. Yeah, thanks. And actually, this reminds me, I was going to ask, this is more of a comment than a question, but I know I live in Colorado on the Front Range, and Denver lost its sounding, a few years ago for, I think there were a few things, including the helium shortage and others that went into that. And for years, I've looked at I'll get up in the morning and read the AFD and look at the sounding, and that wasn't available anymore. But this will be a really nice way to be able to pull up, for example, ACARS data over Denver, which I think that the Boulder office uses quite a bit. But it's a nice way to fill in that hole of the areas that aren't getting the radiosondes anymore, because I think there's more than Denver actually that used to have them that don't anymore. Okay, let's see. A few other people are saying that the website isn't working for them. Maybe it's too busy. I think if you continue to have problems, send an email to the TOWR-S team at the link that they provided there in the chat, and they can probably help you get it figured out, whatever's going on. A comment from Kristen: this is great for IDSS deployments. Is it accessible outside of NOAA IPs? I guess, can you log in like from home using your NOAA email is the question.
Yeah,
I think that's correct, right?
anywhere that you are able to ICANN authenticate, you are able to access it.
So you can do that with your CAC, and you can also do that, I think, by entering your email address and your password.
Yeah, you'll need your YubiKey for sure.
And maybe your YubiKey, yeah. So anywhere I believe anywhere you can access your NOAA email, you should be able to have access to this, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, Chris from at OPC is asking, do you think MTG-S1 will be added to VuSkew once operational? Seems like a good GeoXO readiness activity. Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up, Chris. So for those of you that aren't familiar, our friends over in Europe, EUMETSAT, launched a new satellite back in the summer. I think it was around the 1st of July, called MTG-S1, and they have that satellite has a sounder, a geostationary hyperspectral infrared sounder that's similar to that which GeoXO will fly. They are in the process of checking that data out, and we'll be releasing it sometime next year. And so that's actually a good idea, Chris, is we could look into getting data on there. I think there'll be a decent amount of time for checkout for that, as well as getting access to the retrievals. So I would say maybe in the next couple of years, we could look into and that as to prepare for GeoXO. Good idea. Let's see. So Jennifer comments that the Weather Service is purchasing sounding data from Urban Sky. I'm not familiar with that, but I don't know if anybody wants to comment on that. Good to know. Yeah, so Joe says, I'm sorry, I'm reading things out of order, but this is, you can log in from anywhere. You just need the ICAM authentication and the UB key. Let's see. Denver and Laramie. Yep. Oh, Urban Sky. Sorry, I'm reading out of order again. Urban Sky through NMP is coming soon for Denver and Laramie. Okay. And then there's a question, are the full suite of ACARS soundings ingested into VuSkew? That's a question for Luke or somebody else.
I don't believe we have all of the ACARS soundings currently because we have some that we were unable to decrypt, but we have it on our backlog to look into to try and get even more, as many as we can, hopefully all of them soon.
Yeah, and remember, Matt, that you know, this is a great way to, like, you know, to compare those satellite observations with those other, you know, more institute observations, right? Like the RAOB, etc. But the NWS ACARS viewer is, you know, that we developed like 2 or 3 years ago, is probably your go-to right now for if you're just analyzing ACARS data. But so I know that there's some overlap here, but you know, and we'll see how that evolves over time. So, good question, Matt.
Yeah, Matt says he agrees. Yeah, I think the VuSkew is best for the comparisons between multiple different sounding sources, including the satellite and ACARS and Windboard, et cetera.
And Matt, that's kind of why I said, like, you know, we'll see how this evolves, right? Like, you know, we'll just kind of give it a little time, similar to like what happened with, you know, DESI in the WhatsApp viewer, and how those two applications are being merged into NWS Viz, and that development is you know, has started, and hopefully we'll be prototyping that, you know, in the summer, that merged solution, and this could, you know, evolve very similarly. Time will tell.
Any other questions? I've kind of run out myself. I'll just wait one more moment to see if anybody puts anything else in the chat. Yeah, well, oh, big thanks to Frank. Yeah, so Frank, I don't know if Frank's on the call. I haven't looked at the list, but Joe, shout out to Frank Alsheimer from the Columbia office for having the idea for VuSkew, and kudos to the team at TOWR-S, including Luke and others who worked to put together this really nice resource. While we're waiting for any last questions, I'll just say, Chris brought up the European sounder data. This is going to be an exciting data set for us to look at, because it really will be a proxy for what we're going to get with GeoXO over the CONUS in the 2030s. So look for that in the coming couple of years, some proxy data over Europe and Africa. And we can learn a lot from that, and how we're going to use it and how it can be applied to weather service operations before launch. Okay, that wraps it up. Let's see. I'm handing it back to Brian to finish this out here. Go ahead, Brian.
All right, thank you very much, Dan, for your facilitation of today's session, the Q&A, and to Chad as well for today's walkthrough of VuSkew and the mission dashboard. Like the responsiveness of VuSkew, and I use the polar planner regularly to keep track of those polar orbiting satellites. So great presentation, and on a more general note, thanks to Chad and Dan for their thought leadership generally among all these satellite projects. They've contributed to and improved the implementation of dozens of satellite projects and products into AWEB's operations for the WFOs, for the centers, and we thank them for that. Although we don't have a particular topic scheduled, please join us a week from now. We expect to have a topic identified with an email to go out letting you know what that topic is for next week's Satellite Book Club seminar. Until then, have a great week, and we look forward to seeing you then. We'll wrap up today's seminar right here.